love stories. Hey, welcome back to Love Stories. I'm your host, Cheri Smith, Blue Heart Music, and this is a place where you just might learn a little bit about love while being entertained. Now, today's topic is how to call your crush. Do you have somebody you're crushing on, somebody you think's pretty cute, and you're thinking about maybe giving them a phone call? Well, today we're gonna go over some tips, some how-tos, how to call your crush, and some things also not to do. So I'm going to share my little story on how I pretty much had the worst phone call for one of my early crushes. And I would recommend not doing it the way that I did it. So we'll go over all that today. Okay, well, I think I will start by sharing my somewhat humiliating story. I was a very shy kid, and I was, I think, 6th grade, and I kind of liked a guy, and I just decided, well, I knew some of my friends had called boys, and some of my friends had boys call them, and I was like, I kind of want to get in on that, so I decided to try calling this guy that I liked. But I was also really, really scared to do it and had no idea how to do it. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna call him up, and then I'm not gonna tell him it's me, which is really, who does that? Like, I don't know why. I thought that would be a great idea. So I'm like, I'm just gonna tell him that my name is Mary. So I call him up, and I pick a time of the day where I'm pretty sure he's gonna be home. I think it was like 8 o'clock at night, maybe. So I call him and he answers. So I talked to him for a little bit. He's like, who is this? I was like, oh, it's Mary. And he's like, come on, who is this? Mary. And, I was hoping he would just kind of overlook that and we could actually have a conversation. But he wasn't really interested in talking to me when he didn't know who I was, which, that's understandable. So after a couple minutes of me saying it's Mary, maybe not even that, like 1 minute, I don't know, he was bored and he didn't really want to talk about anything else. He just was like, I have to go golfing now, which was an obvious lie because it was dark outside and it was like, getting late on a school night, I think. Oh, okay. Well, bye. Talk to you later. So that was the end of that call. And it gets worse because the next day at school, he's like, he thought it was this one girl who was very loud and boisterous. And he's like, hey, was that you, to that other girl? And she's like, no, it wasn't me. Who do you think it was? And then she starts going around the room, naming off the girls she thinks might have done it. And she gets to me and she's like, oh, I bet it was Cheri. Because, I don't know, I guess because I was just very shy and quiet and like, maybe she thought, I was somebody who might have done that. And she was right. So they were like, Cheri, was that you? In front of this guy. And I was like so embarrassed and just humiliated. And I was just like cringing and I just kind of like didn't say anything, but it was quite obvious because I was just, I'm sure, turning red and was super embarrassed. That was kind of a rough intro to the first phone call. So obviously, don't do it like that. Needless to say, I didn't really have a crush on that guy after that. It was just too awkward. And obviously, he didn't really develop any feelings for me either. It was just like this weird, awkward thing that happened that we never talked about. And that was the end of that. Don't let your crush end up in a horrible humiliation like I did. Okay, now we know what you should definitely not do. So what's a good way to call your crush? Like, what are some good things to do if you're interested in somebody? How should you give them a call? Well, first, you definitely want to do a little bit of preparation. Like, make a short list of like talking points or questions that you can ask them. So like, do they have any hobbies or interests? Maybe you can ask something about that or ask their opinion on something, movie recommendations, where to go for a hike, or you could talk to them about something at school. If you have classes with them, you know, what did they think of this assignment or something like that. So make a little list that might be great to talk about. And then pick one of them that you're going to start with. So just prepare like a little short list of things that, you know, if the conversation has a bit of a lull, at least you have a direction to go and a few things to chat about. You want to pick kind of a quiet time where you're not going to be interrupted, and you can make the phone call. So before you actually place the call, you know, try to go to a quiet space. And if you're feeling nervous, you know, you can do a few jumping jacks or something, and then just spend a little time doing some deep breathing. Just try to calm your body. And then also think positive thoughts like, hey, this is gonna go great. You know, it might also be helpful to actually rehearse out loud a little bit. Like, you don't want to totally rehearse conversation, obviously, but you know, you just practice like your first sentence. So you kind of have something to start out with, and then make the call. So you dial the number, it rings, and goes to voicemail. What do? Well, don't just hang up, because they are going to know you called. They're going to see that phone number. So you can't just call and hang up anymore. That's, you know, what we used to do back in the day, but now they actually know that you called. So you can't just like try them later. You know, it's better just leave a voicemail. So here's what you say. You just want to keep it short and sweet. You say, hey, so-and-so, this is so-and-so, call me back. Here's my number. And then you tell them your phone number. And that's it. Just very short and sweet. You don't want to go into any detail about why you called or start rambling on. You know, just, hey, so-and-so, this is Cheri. Give me a call back. And then leave your phone number. That's it. You know, obviously use your real name. Don't say Cheri unless your name's Cheri, because that would turn into a Mary situation, which, as we all know, turned out horribly. So anyway, leave your real name, leave your real number, and just tell them to call you back. But don't say, I just called to say hi. Like, don't even say that. Just, then they'll wonder why you called, and they'll call you back. Just short and sweet, and that's it. And then hang up. So let's pretend that somebody is at home, and somebody answers the phone when you call. So first, make sure it's them. So you're like, hey, is so-and-so there? They come on the phone. Oh, hey, you know, this is whatever your name is. You just say, hey, this is Cheri. You want to have one question at the ready. So you need something to kick the whole conversation off with. Kind of like your excuse for calling. You might say like, you know, my family, we always like to watch movies every weekend, and we can't really think of a good movie for this weekend. Have you seen any good movies lately? Are there any movies that you like? They might have some movies they liked, or they might not. They might not be able to think of any. If they can't think of any, that's fine. They'll just say, oh, you know, I can't really think of any good movies right now. And then follow that up with, oh, well, what kind of movies do you like? Or, you know, maybe they give you a couple examples and you're like, oh, cool, I'll check those out. You know, what other kind of movies do you like? So you see what I'm saying? You just let the ball roll on having a natural conversation. You know, that can segue into other topics like, you know, what other interests do you have? Or like, I heard you're into skiing, you know, how did you get into that? Just have a question or two to start with, and hopefully the ball will be rolling. So there should be some back and forth in the conversation. Like, you shouldn't be just bullet pointing down through your list. You know, just try to let it have a natural flow. Don't interrupt them. Ask them a few questions, seem interested in their answers. Hopefully they kind of ask some questions back so you can have like a more meaningful conversation. You can learn a little bit about each other. Or if they're like, I'm into this thing, you could be like, you know, if you're into that too, then yeah, oh, cool, I love that. You know, so don't pretend you're into something if you're not, but if it's something you have in common, you know, point that out. You'd be like, oh, that's really cool. I enjoy that too. While you're talking, make sure that you keep the focus on them. Like, don't start watching TV and like, ha ha ha, and they have no idea what you're talking about, you know, or like, don't start talking to somebody else while you're having this phone conversation. You know, keep your focus on what they're saying. If you want, you can throw in a compliment. They would probably like that. Oh, hey, I saw you had these really cool shoes that you wore to school the other day. Where'd you get those? Also, be kind of mindful of how you're breathing. Like, yeah, don't breathe right into the phone, like either with your nostrils or with your mouth, because that's like a super awkward thing. If somebody's like, like the person that's on the other end of that, it's really loud to them. So, you know, maybe when you're not talking, like, you can tip the phone up so the speaker is not going to catch your breathing. That might be a good idea too, because it's just so awkward if somebody's like on the phone and, you know, it just makes things awkward. So don't do that. Be mindful while you're having the conversation. So on the first call or two, you should keep it really short. Keep the convo like maybe 5 or 10 minutes long. Don't just let it drag on and on. You know, if you've chatted for a few minutes and it's feeling good, wrap it up. You know, end things while you're on a good note. Because if things are going well and then you keep talking and going on and then there's conversation starts dragging, then that's not going to end well. So if the conversation's good, then just be like, you know, it was great talking to you. And then you might even feel like you want to follow that up with, let's chat again next week. You know, I'll give you a call. Or maybe this is like your second or third phone call together and you want to kick it up a notch. You can say, hey, here's my number. I'd love it if you call me next week sometime. I don't know if you are feeling ready for that route, but that's another option. Okay, so I hope you have a pretty good idea on how to best call your crush. And let's think about a few lessons that we might have learned. Well, number one, the big one, don't give a fake name. Like, just be yourself. You know, if you have a crush on somebody and you're hoping that they will eventually return those feelings, then you should just be yourself. Okay, so use your real name. Don't make the horrible mistake that I did. And then secondly, you know, just make sure you're prepared for the call. So write down your short list of questions. When they answer the phone, you know, how are you? I'm fine. And then they'll ask, how are you doing? I'm fine. And then you have your question ready to go, your first talking point. And then hopefully it has a natural flow to it. But also keep it short, 5 or 10 minutes max. Don't let the phone conversation go on and on. And then have your exit strategy. You know, it was great talking to you. Let's chat again next week. I'll give you a call. Okay, bye. You know, that's it. So I hope your first call to your crush goes well. Good luck. At any rate, I think it'll probably go better than mine did. So if you've already watched this and you made your first call, drop your comments below. Let me know how your phone call went. I would love to hear about it. All right, that's it for Love Stories. Thanks so much for joining me today. And if you enjoyed this episode, then don't forget you can catch a new episode almost every Thursday, 4 p.m. Pacific time. And please don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and most importantly, know that you are loved. And second most importantly, please subscribe. I'm trying to build up my subscribers, so, you know, number one, know you are loved. Number 2, please subscribe. Thanks again for joining me. And this is Cheri Smith, Blue Heart Music. You've been watching Love Stories. And I will catch you next time.